There we go. Okay, so we went through the first two definitions real quick. Now, just remember, with the line. So whatever way the line is going, and how many of her points are on the line. So if you've got M, N, O, P, okay, you can pick any two letters off the line to name it. So if you wanted to pick N, P, you could. It's most common to see the two end points with the line. But also remember that you can reverse them. So you could say PN, and that's the same line. So there's lots of different ways to name the exact same line. I'm just kind of trying to tell you probably what you're most common. And if you notice, a lot of your diagrams are not that complicated, so there's not usually as many choices. But when you guys do your homework, since you're here in class with me, when I post my answers online, just realize that if I call the line AB and you call it BA, it's the same answer, okay? All right, collinear. Co means same. So basically what they're asking you when you hear the word collinear is points on the same line. So points on the same line. We probably should have already answered number one, but that's okay. Let's just go down and answer number two, because to draw yourself a picture over here doesn't really make a lot of sense. So if you go down to number two, notice they'll tell you how many points. Sometimes they say 3, sometimes they'll say 4, sometimes they say 2, but they'll tell you how many points for collinear. Obviously you have to be at least 2, because 1 point, you don't really have any like partner. So if you look at this, points that are on the same line, you could either, well, because it's 3, we have to say SPT. Because if you try to do the other line, there's not 3, there's only 2. So if you have to do 3, then I would say SPT. Now if you want to reverse the order, you can reverse the order. You can do T first, but it's not as common to start in the middle. But again, as long as you have 3, it would be right. Plane is one of the hardest concepts sometimes for kids. Imagine like this room was filled up with like a stack of papers, just as much as you could possibly pile up in this room. Each one of these sheets, in a way, is like a plane. Now, planes go on forever. So it's, again, they're layered on top of each other, and each plane contains items. It's almost like in science class when you talk about, cells make up certain things. So planes make up like our universe in a way. But how do you draw that on a flat sheet of paper? So usually what they'll do is they draw a slanted like parallelogram. So almost like a slanted rectangle. So you want to sort of think of a plane as like a layer that goes on forever. But again, we can't really draw that. So we put like a boundary around it to show where it is. Otherwise, how do you even see it? Now, to name a plane, there's a couple ways. The most common way is to use a capital letter in the corner. So oftentimes what you'll see is they'll put like a letter in the corner. Now you can put whatever letter you want, but I sometimes use T for twig just because it's an easy letter. And it's usually a capital letter that's in the corner. If you notice down here in this picture, do you see the R is in the bottom corner? Probably they put it in the bottom corner because if you notice the top corner is kind of a little tight. So you can put it in whatever corner you want. That's up to you. So that's one way to name it. So you could say like plain T. But sometimes, look down here at number 1, they'll ask you to give additional names. So you're looking at this plane and you're like, well, they already used the corner letter, so how else am I supposed to name it? Another way to name a plane is to say plane, and then you can pick any 3 letters that are in it. Now you can't pick R because they already used R. So pick any 3 letters, like how about VSP. You just got to pick 3. I don't 100% know why 3, but they always want 3. Like, I don't know if that's just to give like a better description or what, but they always pick 3. So write another combination of 3 letters. Plain. Celia, what do you want to use? We can't really use R because that's not really a point, that's just a name. So what do you want to use? TPV. There we go. Now remember, you are never going to have to write a definition for any of these. But they're going to ask you, like, if I were to show you the quiz, like if we end up taking a quiz, there's another diagram. It looks a little different than this. And it asks you the same type questions. Name this, describe this line, stuff like that. So as long as you can identify it out of a picture or you can draw it yourself, you'll be fine. All right, coplanar, same prefix. Co meaning same, plane. I guess I should say points. So points in the same plane. Once again, they will ask you for a certain number. Like they'll say, name 3 coplanar points, or 4, or whatever. Again, to draw a picture here might just be better to go down to an example. So if you go down to example 3, do you see how it says name 4? Now, R is not a point. R is just naming it. So you can't pick R. You can't pick M. And if you notice, Q is not in the plane. It's like hovering above it, like 3-dimensionally. So you have to pick 4 dots within this parallelogram. You can put them in whatever order you want. I'll put V, S, P, T. You do not have to put them in alphabetical order. It's actually most common to probably pick one and then go like clockwise or counterclockwise, just through the picture, versus seeing them alphabetically. How are you feeling so far? You will see these vocabulary words in other chapters as well. So I told you, this is a weird chapter. It's a ton of vocabulary. Friday's lesson, when we do 1-2, it is a little bit more numerical. It does still have some vocabulary, but it does have a little bit more actual numerical answers. Okay, I think you guys know what a segment is. Just basically, I guess, remember how to name a segment. So if that was my segment, we use the 2 endpoints and we just draw like a line with nothing on the ends. We usually don't put dots. We don't put arrowheads. It's just a little chunk of a segment. Rays. I think you guys all kind of know what a ray is, correct? I mean, you kind of have a visual in your head. Naming rays gets kind of goofy. So just remember, a ray has an endpoint and then goes on forever in like one direction. I'll let you write that. Now, I don't know if you want to draw this picture. I'm just going to use a separate sheet of paper so I can draw it a little bit bigger. And again, these are your notes. Like, I don't care what you write down. You can look it up in the book, whatever you want to do. Let me just show you one ray. So let's call this ray AB, okay? So here's ray AB, and this is what the symbol would look like. Now, everybody realize that A is where it starts, and it goes on forever through B, correct? Could I move B in closer? And would it change my ray? No. So rays, it's more like this is where you start, so the starting point is more important, and like the direction. Like I'm pointing up to the like northeast corner. That's important, but not necessarily where the second point is, okay? The other thing is you could reverse your letters like this, but then you would have to reverse your symbol. That is the same ray. Now, The reason why I use this one more is because on my computer, if I hold down Command R, it makes that symbol. In order for me to use this symbol, I have to go through like insert equation and blah, blah, blah. So I don't typically use this left one just because it's harder for me to insert them, okay? The other thing you guys are gonna notice when you guys see stuff online is Google Docs does not, the only symbol in Google Docs is the segment symbol. This is the only one. So when you guys see the line and when you see the ray symbol, it's almost gonna look like a different font, because what I had to do was I had to type it in a Word document, take a screenshot, and then like import it as a picture. I mean, I know Google Docs is great because then it doesn't matter what computer you have, that you can open all the files. Because some of you, like if you have a Chromebook, like I know my daughter has a Chromebook, it does not have Word on it. So if I type your stuff in Word and you have a Chromebook, you may not be able to open it. So I get the Google Docs, but Google Docs does not love math. I mean, it really doesn't. So you might notice some weird font issues with it, and I'm just, being transparent as why. So, another quick thing, real quick, and then I'm going to move on from this one. Do you see this picture? You can name this AB or AC. You have to use the A because that's the starting point, but which point you go, like the second one, doesn't really matter. A lot of people do the one that's last. They do start to last, but if you wanted to, you could do the one before it, okay? Now, opposite rays. So I'm just going to write right here, I'm just going to go like that. You can put whatever you want in there. Opposite rays. Basically, it's two rays that share an endpoint. So they have to share an endpoint. So don't draw this, just watch. Again, I'm right-handed, clearly, so I typically draw things to the right just because it's more comfortable for me. Here's a ray, correct? An opposite ray has to start from here. It has to start here. And it has to form a line. So if I do this, yes, that's two rays, but they're not opposite. That's the definition of an angle. If you didn't know this or not, the definition of an angle is two rays that share an endpoint. That's the definition of an angle, okay? So to be opposite, not only do you have to share an endpoint, but you have to form a straight line. So it's a two-part definition. So draw yourself basically a dot with a line through it. So whatever you call this, I'm going to call this M because it's in the middle of the alphabet. I mean, why not? Now you're going to make a ray each direction. Now, I'm just going to do this, just watch my picture, and then you can draw yours. Do you see how I clearly did not balance the two dots? That's okay. They don't have to be balanced. You just need a ray going like to the right and a ray going to the left. They just have to form a straight line. So I'll call this A and B, and my two rays would be MA. Do you notice how that looks backwards from the drawing? If you want, I can reverse it. I can do AM and do my arrow the other way. It's just, one, it's more uncomfortable for me, and two, I don't have that symbol, like I say, as a shortcut on my computer. Which I guess probably doesn't really matter anyways now because Google Apps doesn't have a ray symbol to begin with at all. And then this one would be MB. Most people are more comfortable with that one because it matches its direction. So once again, when you see the answer key for tomorrow's homework, if you put yours backwards, it's going to look different than mine. My answer key is my handwritten stuff because it was faster for me just to write my own answer key and scan it into the computer than to try to type it all in because, again, don't love Google Docs. we didn't name this one. Or how do you guys feel with two other names for line PQ? Here's PQ. Doesn't have a whole lot on it. Are you going to be able to give me two other names? Now, do you see how it says the word line? It's because, again, this is a Google Doc. So don't do this. I would not probably accept you doing that. I'd be like, that's the same thing. So don't do that. So can you give me two others? Yeah, just reverse the PQ. So you can say QP. Because the line goes on forever, so it doesn't really matter who's listed first. And look at this little letter right here. So if there's a little letter on the end, what you have to do is you have to say line, and then you do the letter. And typically you'll see it as a lowercase. We did the other ones. How about name a point that's not coplanar? So name a point that doesn't fall on the plane. Q. See how it's kind of hovering up there? Now, if you're going to do a point, you can just do the capital letter. You don't have to say point. I mean, you can if you want, but you don't have to. Now, you pretty much know everything you need. This is everything, but we might want to just hit like a question or two just to make sure you're comfortable. Especially, I want to hit like number 8, and I want to hit at least like a drawing one just so you know what's expected of you. So, do you feel like you could name all the rays with endpoint J? If you look, J's in the middle. So it would go J, JH, JE, right? It would just go each one. So I'm not going to take your time to do all that, but I heard JH, so we'll draw that one. But then you just would list all of them. Opposite rays. Let me just tell you right now, if I could not see this picture, I could get this down to a 50% option here. Because opposite rays have to share the same start. So look at choice A. Do you see how that first spot is not the same letter? So I can't pick A. B has the same first. C has, ooh, look at that. Do you see how the first letter is not the same right there? Without even seeing the picture, it can't be this option. So now I just have to look at these two choices and make sure they go in a straight line. So JH, JG. And this is looking really good right there. Maybe I should still read this. JF, JH. Do you see how it's an angle? So it can't be this choice. And again, I almost hate to say this, but I am almost wondering if when we do take assessments online, because let's be honest, that's probably what's going to happen. I'm wondering if there's going to have to be a lot of multiple choice like this. Because how are you going to draw me opposite rays and then send it back to me? Especially, I have 119 of you. I got one more kid added today in my algebra class. But I have 119 kids. Do you really think I'm going to be able to look at all of those drawings in a reasonable amount of time? I mean, it would take me forever to open up every single person's documents and things like that. So I'm almost wondering if tons of this stuff is going to be multiple choice. So as long as you kind of understand this process, I think you're going to be fine. Are you okay with this one? Line, line, where do they intersect? J, so you just have to do capital. Okay, 8. You are supposed to visualize what this looks like and describe the shape as either a segment, a ray, or a line. So if you can do the visualization in your head, then you don't need to draw it. But if you're not sure what they're talking about, from algebra class, if you were to draw this, x is less than or equal to 2, that's what it would look like if you were in my algebra class. So would you say that's a segment, a ray, or a line? A ray. So I don't expect you to draw the picture if you can visualize it in your head. So think to yourself what you're thinking about B. You remember that's the compound and. we will see the compound and. You actually will be solving some compound ands in our class. Last try I never saw a compound or, but we will see some compound ands, so you'll have to kind of, remember how to solve those. So, would you agree this is a segment? Again, if you draw this, -3 to 2, ands look like this, where they're like dark in the middle. Ors are the ones that split. So this is a compound and. I wanted to make sure we hit that just so you have, I can easily see that in a multiple choice, very easily. 3 choices, or choice 4 would be none of the above. That would be an easy multiple choice. Now, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So the next 4 questions, they're asking you to draw something. I'm not saying we have to go through all these. I do think it's good for you to practice. I don't know how this is going to be tested. I can tell you right now, if I were to give you the original test, there's 2 drawings on there. Maybe we'll keep one and you'll have to send me a picture of your artwork or something. I don't know. But I can't believe you're going to have a ton of them, just as it'd be too difficult. So, do you want me to do both, or what do you want me to do? Okay. I sort of think 10 is harder, but I can do both. Let's just do 9. Sketch a plane. So here's my plane. A line that's in the plane. You can call it whatever you want. Draw it whatever angle you want. And a line that's not in the plane. Now this is difficult because planes go on forever. So you essentially have to draw a segment almost in a way that's 3-dimensional. But the way we put boundaries on this, you could just draw your other segment, or your other line. Sorry, it says line, not segment. Your other line outside of the boundaries. Because again, how else would you draw this? I mean, essentially what you're trying to draw is this. You're trying to draw a plane with a line that's not in it, but it's on a flat surface. So that's why we put boundaries around it. So I will tell you, even when we were in first try, I was super flexible with drawings because I'm not an artist. So, look at number 10. You have to sketch a plane with a line that goes through this in one place. This is what you have to draw. Again, if you stuck me in Mr. Meyer's class, I would probably bomb because I cannot draw anything. So, this is my representation of it. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Here's a plane. Got half the credit. Now you got to draw a line that goes through it. So what I did was I kind of went kind of close to the edge and I made a hole. And I did a line that goes through it. Now, if you use dashed, that's representing the background. So if you don't want to do it on the corner, let me show you what it might look like more in the middle of the paper. So you're kind of trying to show that this is going through the paper. And also, do you notice how I went beyond the boundaries? By going beyond the edge of the plane, you're trying to give your audience an idea that this line is through it, not in it. Okay? I'm not a perfect artist. I do not even remotely claim to be. So do your best. But again, if we take this test online, gosh, I don't even know if we're going to do one of these. Or you're going to have to it will be one, if that. Okay? The only other one, and I'm happy to sketch these other 2 in a second, but I want to hit number 13, because I'll tell you right now, if the test stays at all remotely the same, this is in the multiple choice. It says 2 planes that intersect form a blank where they intersect. So think about 2 of our walls. Now, our ceilings are kind of hard because there's a big gap, but think about this front wall and the floor. Think about where the floor comes into the front wall. Does it only come in at a dot? Does it come in at a ray? Is it a segment? Now right now in your brain it kind of looks like a segment because it's from that corner to that corner, and so it stops. It's a segment. But if it's a true plane and these go on forever, what's a segment that goes on forever called? A line. So basically what they're telling you is when two planes come together, they form a line. This is a multiple choice question. At least if we kept the test the way it is right now, it's a multiple choice question. I think the choices are like segment, ray, line, don't intersect or something like that is a goofy choice. I know that's on there. I wouldn't be too overly concerned with this. This one, they're just trying to give you an application of where you might see these things in the real world. But again, maybe watch out for some of those drawing ones. So, yeah, why don't I need to wrap up here. Okay, homework here.